Hello everyone and welcome back to GregTech New Horizons. In the last episode, we fixed our chlorine issues here by setting up a mob farm for passively producing gas tiers, which makes us some salt water that we electrolyze for the chlorine. And then we also moved all of the blast furnaces that we had in the overworld for on-demand crafting, and also a couple of passive ones here for steel, aluminum, and titanium. And yeah, they've been working great in between the episodes. We have pretty much 3,000 of all those metals other than titanium, but that's just because we don't have any rutile anymore. I'll have to process some more of that later. Oh yeah, and also at the end of the last episode, we finally got access to nanoprocessors, which is the cheapest version of the HVs, and it also allows us to make LUV circuits. So like if we want to request a bunch of those now, it's actually pretty doable. All we're missing is some platinum and, oh yeah, NOR memory chips. That's fine. That's just going to be a couple patterns here and also a new laser engraver. I already have the lens for it, which is Ender Eye, and I guess we'll just craft those like 4 at a time. Something like that. Yeah, we can easily engrave the wafer with our universal guy. So now if I want like 4 of these, yeah, it's honestly not too bad. I'll craft 1 of each right here just so that we can have the quest for that. We'll get these in a second here. But yeah, so anyways, in between the episodes, I've gone ahead and did the thing that I said I was going to do, which was mining a bunch of endstone. I was just in the end for a couple of hours actually, because I wasn't just trying to mine for endstone while I was there. There's some other stuff that happened at the same time. You know, I of course had to take care of the big guy, the Ender Dragon. He honestly wasn't too bad. We have flight, we have the good crossbow. And then yeah, after that I went on to do a bunch of mining. In the end, I managed to collect like 16,000 endstone, which is a pretty decent amount. It's all in the overworld though, so I'll show it off in a second, but yeah. Oh yeah, and while I was there, I did go ahead and do a bunch of flying around. That's actually where the bulk of the time was spent, just flying around to try and find one very specific ore vein that can spawn in these, like, end asteroids, I guess. That ore being scheelite, or I guess it's called a tungstate vein, but yeah, we were looking for scheelite. You'll see why this is important a little later in the episode. But yeah, I was in there for so long trying to search for the ore that, well, at some point, the server actually crashed. I'm guessing from the amount of chunks I was loading. But yeah, after like 3 hours of searching or so, I did finally manage to hit one of those veins. Wait, this is scheelite ore. Oh my goodness, finally! And the Endermen are mad, but they all fell in the void. This took way too long to find. Yeah, I'm gonna mine this entire meteor up. Now, of course, I did make sure to grab the entire vein here, which is sitting in both of these compressed chests, along with all the endstone. So let's get to processing this, along with the tungstate that you can also find in the same vein. And let's see here. The only byproducts are just manganese, I think. Yeah, we can really only get manganese or molybdenum. So we'll probably just macerate, forge hammer, and then centrifuge. Yeah, I'd rather have the better processing speed. I'm not really lacking on manganese at all. We have a couple thousand. All right, yeah, we'll let this stuff go through ore processing. In the meanwhile, we'll start off today's episode by following through this quest line here to set up fully automatic tungsten processing. Okay, so with that quest out of the way, I did just look into the machines we're going to need for this. And there's only going to be 3 of them. One LCR here, which is going to be running at EV, so we're going to need the double HV energy hatch. And then also an EV autoclave, which I can almost do if I had some titanium plates. Well, actually, first, let's grab the circuit quests here for all the nano stuff. Okay, now we can craft this. And the last machine we're going to need here is 1 more EBF. And we'll lay these out something like this. We'll have the blast furnace here, chemical reactor next to that, and then the autoclave. We could probably just have that here, although I'm not sure. This might change in a little bit. Also, that is not where the EBF controller goes. Oh yeah, and so that we can get enough power to this area, we'll have to add a 16 amp diode here. This 4 amp battery buffer is definitely not enough. But yeah, if we switch out the wiring something like this, that should work. We have the double HV hatches on the chemical reactor and then just a single one on the EBF. And then for the autoclave, I guess we can move him up by 1 block and then have a transformer right underneath that, which is going to be set to transform up mode. So it's going to take 4 amps of HV like so. And then yeah, that'll supply the 1 amp of EV for this guy. All right, now to deal with the inputs and outputs. Also, I did realize that I had an extra set of Cantle coil blocks. So yeah, we'll totally be using this instead of the Cooper nickel. But yeah, so when it comes to tungsten, there's only 2 forms that we really care about. The tungsten dust and also the ingots, of course. The dust is going to be used for the tungsten steel, And the ingots are going to be used for tungsten cable, which we need in all of the IV components, basically. Now, thankfully, there's a very neat recipe for both of those things, the input of which is this tungsten trioxide. So if you want the dust, you just cook it in the EBF on circuit 2, and it's 1 dust every 5 seconds. But if you want the ingots, it's 400 seconds, which, I mean, that's kind of garbage, but it gives you 2 ingots at a time, so I guess I can't complain. It is faster than, like, smelting the tungsten dust directly, of course. That one would be 500 seconds for 1. But yeah, so how do we get the tungsten trioxide? Well, that comes from blasting tungstic acid at HV with any tier of coil, basically. That's the job of this guy. So there's your input and output buses for that. The output will extract on red. That'll just go back to the system. And then the input bus, we can filter tungstic acid into that and insert on brown. As for the tungstic acid, well, that's just a recipe in the chemical reactor with our scheelite dust that we're going to get from ore processing, plus some hydrochloric acid. So it's fairly easy. And then you also get this calcium chloride back, which you can recycle for the chlorine input if you use sodium tungstate. And this just comes from sodium, water, and tungstate dust, which we're also going to get from our ore processing, and also from centrifuging endstone dust. This is usually the way you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to get a bunch of endstone, centrifuge it for the tungstate, and then process that to get the scheelite dust, and then you can get your tungstic acid. But since I was lucky enough to find that meteor, we can kind of skip a little bit of that. Although I'll definitely still be setting up the tungstate processing, because why the hell not? But yeah, so let me quickly set up all those inputs and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so it's been a couple of minutes, and I believe now if I just dump in a bit of scheelite and tungstate to get started with, and then we also need to input some sodium into the autoclave, enable both the chemical reactor and the blast furnace, and I was really hoping that was going to work first try, but what am I missing here? Oh, I forgot to actually link up the P2P for power. Aha, nice, now it's working, good. Alright, so yeah, there's the autoclave for sodium tungstate, which should go into the input hatch of the chemical reactor, which it is, and then we're also storing the lithium up in this drawer here. It's a byproduct, so we're avoiding excess, of course. But yeah, coming to the chemical reactor, it's saying there's not enough item output space. Oh, right, we're missing an output for calcium chloride. Okay, let me try and explain this a little bit more, actually. So yeah, as you saw, the sodium tungstate is going into the chemical reactor, and then this also has to react with calcium chloride to give us scheelite, plus a byproduct of salt, which right now we are automatically outputting into an HV electrolyzer to recycle the sodium that goes into the input of the autoclave. But yeah, after you get your scheelite, then you're supposed to mix it with hydrochloric acid, as we saw earlier, which gives us our tungstic acid plus our calcium chloride back that we used in the original step. And usually to get your initial batch, I think you're supposed to run one of these recipes here with like calcite and hydrochloric acid to get it, and then you loop this forever. But because we already have scheelite, we can get a little bit of that. All we need to do is add an output bus for that and make sure to filter it, which then will output to the drawer, and then we have to loop it back into an input bus. Let's also go ahead and filter that. So now this guy should turn on. Ah, nice, there we go. Oh, and it looks like the blast furnace also just turned on. Yeah, because from reacting the scheelite with hydrochloric acid, this is where we get our tungstic acid, which is already going into the input bus. And then yeah, we get our tungsten trioxide from this. Here's my calcium chloride as well. Let's filter that into the output bus. That's going in there. Now we should be also processing the sodium tungstate. Yeah, this is giving us even more scheelite, plus the salt, which should give us our both sodium back and also the chlorine that we used for hydrochloric acid. We'll just have to send that back into an input hatch from the electrolyzer. And yeah, of course, this time we're not going to have just a single block chemical reactor for the hydrochloric acid. That was kind of stupid of me. I don't know why I didn't think of just reusing the same chemical reactor, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, now the electrolyzer is running. And I already put circuit 1 in the chemical reactor, so we should get hydrochloric acid somewhere. Oh yeah, there we go. We're getting it in the input hatch. And now we're making more tungstic acid. So yeah, I think, there we go. Everything is being looped properly. We're taking care of all of the inputs, basically. And even though usually calcium chloride is a looped item, because usually the scheelite would be coming from sodium tungstate, but for us, it's actually going to be something that we get an overflow of, since we have scheelite ore directly, which is skipping this step. But of course, we're already setting it to a voided drawer, so it shouldn't actually be a problem. And I think similar to the titanium, we're just gonna not level emit the EBF for that. All right, now I think I should probably just pick up the quest for this stuff. It looks like it wants some salt, which the electrolyzer just finished recycling. God damn it. Oh, okay, and now it wants our tungsten steel, which we already have some, and it also wants a couple pieces of the dust, which we can technically do. We just need to set up a recipe for tungsten here. This will be done on our on-demand, guys. We're just gonna have to change this up slightly here, so that we can add an input bus here for circuit 2. That's what the recipe wants here. And then we can just rewire everything something like this. Oh yeah, and to connect the interface, we'll just go from underneath. Make sure to enable input separation in the controllers, and also rename the interface. And cool, now we can get a bunch of tungsten steel here. We might as well even like try and request a stack of the ingots, which we can almost do if we had enough tungsten trioxide. Although I thought I'd have a little bit more than that by now. Why did you guys stop? Yeah, absolutely nothing is running, even though we have plenty of scheelite. Oh, I see. Okay, we're not getting any more hydrochloric acid, and I think that's because we're kind of relying on the calcium chloride being there, which is only going to give us salt for more chlorine if we have sodium sodium tungstate, which we don't. Which means that our setup here is relying on tungstate to actually process scheelite, even though that's not really what I want. So I think, you know what? We'll use some conduits here to extract the hydrochloric acid into the input, and then we'll also supply some from the dual interface. But I also put this on a separate channel. That way, we can have a little level emitter here, and we'll tell this to emit whenever we have less than 16 of the tungstate dust, which will then turn on our purple extraction, right? Only active with the signal. And yeah, this is only going to extract hydrochloric acid from the interface. So basically, if we have no tungstate to keep the chlorine loop going, then it will supply some from the main system. But if we do have tungstate, which will give us more chlorine, then there won't be any need to take from our main buffer, which will turn off the level emitter and turn off the conduit. So yeah, now that should be good. Also looks like my tungsten steel dust is ready. All right, there we go. Nice. This is going to take like an hour to get ready, so I think in the meanwhile, we're going to move on to some other project. Oh, and it looks like that other project is going to be another blast furnace material, HSSG here. The mixer recipe for it is just molybdenum, chrome, vanadium, and tungsten steel dust. So it's a little expensive, but it's not too bad. But like if we want half a stack of that, we almost have enough tungsten again. We just need some molybdenum, chrome, and vanadium. And I believe we already have all that stuff. I'm just going to have to grab it from the overworld. Yeah, nice. Looks like we already have all the vanadium. And as for molybdenum, it's probably just in one of these chests here. Yeah, I have some raw molybdenum ore. So we'll go ahead and process this up. If only I had some space in the chests. That's fine. Yeah, you know what? I completely forgot that scheelite actually macerates into 4 crushed every time. So we're gonna have so much of this. Oh my goodness. All right, so it's been a little bit of time later. I just left to do something real quick, and I didn't actually mean to leave my PC on for so long. Well, it looks like the tungsten steel is actually almost finished cooking in the EBF by now. But yeah, I just went to process all that molybdenum, and I brought over some more scheelite and tungstate. I mean, yeah, that's cool. We almost already have that one stack. Anyways, we should also now be able to request our HSSG. Never mind, I lied. I need more molybdenum. Hold up. Alright, cool. That'll get ready in a while. For now, there's actually only a couple of things here that we need to wrap up in the EV chapter. Mainly the EV energy hatch, which I would like to do right now. And also graphene. These are the last 2 things that we need to do before we can move on to the IV chapter. Oh, and of course the tier 2 rocket, but the only reason you'd really want this is for the uranium and also scheelite veins, because they spawn a lot more commonly over there. Although if you hold a stack of tungsten steel, it should skip the quest. Although we will definitely come back later to grab this though. But anyways, yeah, EV energy hatches. So I'm just gonna go ahead and encode the recipe for these, and we'll see what kind of stuff we're missing. Let's try and request like 8 of these to get started with. That's a pretty decent amount. Oh, and we're not missing that much. Just power ICs and extreme voltage coils. The coil is just magnetic neodymium and fine tungsten steel wire, which is actually completely doable. And then the power IC, that's going to need an EV cutting machine, so we'll have to consider that. And then the wafer, oh, that we can, I was expecting that to take an EV laser engraver, but no, we can do that in our HV guy. And it just needs an aqua lens for this. Oh, and also for the extreme coil, we're gonna need an EV assembler on circuit 1. So we might as well make a fresh one here. Alright, we want to switch our any EV circuit recipe here so that it uses the nano processors. And I think now we can get one of these. Yeah, okay. It's actually kind of expensive, but... Oh, also looks like my stack of tungsten steel is ready by now. And also, looking at the EV cutting machine recipe, all I'm missing for this is a diamond saw blade. Everything else I can easily request, so let me grab one of these. Alright, so there you have it. We have an extra EV assembly machine for circuit 1, you know, for the coil, and then I also upgraded the cutting machine here. As for the HV guy, I just moved him outside of the clean room here. He's still useful for things like glowstone, diamond plates, stuff like that. Alright, so now I believe we can get our 8 EV energy hatches. Yep, very nice. Let's get those. And also while we were doing that, our HSSG is ready now. So there you go, there's that quest. Alright, I think now that the EV energy hatches are crafting, let's, while we wait for those guys, look into making some graphene here. Yeah, this is the last thing that we need before we can unlock IV, and the recipe for it isn't too bad. It's a bunch of graphite, phosphorus wafers, and advanced glue. I already have plenty of the graphite ore, so this is not a problem. We'll go ahead and throw a decent amount into the ore processing. Oh, and actually, I managed to find a couple stacks in the ore processing outputs already. So yeah, now we're just missing a couple patterns for the phosphorus wafers, which that's easy enough to add. That's actually going to be a circuit 3 recipe, so we're going to need another input bus for that. And probably some more channels, because I think this line here is maxed out. Alright then, let's extend the dense cable along. Oh... Okay, that kind of sucks actually. We voided a couple ingots. Oh, and now the steam centrifuge that we have in the overworld is power failing. God damn it. But anyways, let's try and request a bunch of these phosphorus wafers. Oh yeah, of course, we're going to be missing all the garbage. I guess I'm going to need to add some sort of a forge hammer to auto crafting. And yeah, we'll also have to set up silicon solar grade again. Although that will probably have to wait until ore processing, because I don't actually have any raw silicon laying around. Yeah, we're going to have to deal with that soon. Anyways, now of course, the last thing we're missing for our graphene is the advanced glue. And it looks like it's going to be another multi-step process here. Let me get all the machines we're going to need for that ready, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so looking at the recipes here, it's actually quite simple. We're only going to need an LCR and a mixer, both of which are going to be running at MV. And I already went ahead and hooked up the power, so we should be good on that front. And if you look at the inputs here, so there's two recipes for the advanced glue. We can either use acetone plus polyvinyl acetate, or we can substitute the acetone out for methyl acetate. And I think I'm going to do this because we get this from actually distilling wood vinegar. And if we look here, we do have a couple hundred buckets. And yeah, I'm aware that we don't get that much of it every recipe, but I have no other use for it, so I might as well use it for the advanced glue here. We can save the acetone for other recipes like epoxy or whatever else acetone is needed in. Now, as for the polyvinyl acetate, that just comes from oxygen plus vinyl acetate, and then this is a combination of oxygen, ethylene, and acetic acid. And this last one here we actually also get from wood vinegar distillation. So yeah, we're just gonna have to send both of those guys to main fluid storage, and we also need to set up the fluid level emitters for them. We'll say 1,000 buckets for the acetic acid, and then only like 250 buckets of the methyl acetate. Alright, now we can set up the chemical reactor. So we filter in the oxygen, ethylene, and acetic acid. And then for the recipe, we need circuit number 4, so we're going to have an input bus for that. That way we can output the vinyl acetate directly back into the input hatch of the same chemical reactor. And then it should combine again on oxygen, but it does need to be circuit 1, which is fine. We have the input bus, so we can have 2 different circuit numbers. And yeah, now we can set the vinyl acetate into the mixer. Make sure to filter the hatch. Alright, now we just need another interface to request a methyl acetate, since both of those guys are already full. We'll have to filter that into an intermediary tank though, because this has to be in cell form. And then we'll just need a couple conveyors here to pass the cells around. And it's saying that there's not enough fluid output space. I think I must have missed something here. Oh, right. I'm missing an output hatch for water, which of course we're just going to trash. All right, now this should be good. Yeah, there we go. Nice. And a little bit of later, I think now we can turn on the mixer. Aha, nice, which is giving us our advanced glue. Perfect. All right, and now we just have to give him a tank. Alright, cool. All that's left to do now is set in a pattern for the graphene, which does have to go into a circuit 1 EV assembler, so good thing we added that today. Sure, let me get like 6 stacks of that right now, since that's all the graphite that I have. It's actually pretty cheap. Okay, let's go. Oh, and by the way, I'm not sure if I explained this already, but the graphene here is just the wire material, and I think you need the 4X here to make, yeah, IV motors. So it's quite important that we have this. Let's already set in patterns for all this stuff. Oh, and you know what I just forgot to do? This is a regular interface, not a dual one. Okay, yeah, instead of sending out the fluid, it sent out these packets here, which I'm pretty sure are absolutely useless, so we're just gonna trash those. Yeah, so that's my bad. I forgot to actually make this a dual interface. Yeah, perfect. It's working. Although it is a 160-second recipe, so that's fun. All right, then in that case, I'll just wait for this to get ready, and then I'll bring you back in a moment. Although before I go, let's actually go ahead and pick up those EV energy hatches that we have. Yeah, these finished crafting a while ago. I just now remembered about them though. Anyways, yeah, let me wait for this. I might as well even take a little break here, edit some of the footage, and then we'll see what the next goal for us in this episode is going to be. Alright, so welcome back. It has been quite a number of hours later, and we finally have our graphene dust now, alongside a bunch more tungsten steel that I went ahead and requested. I think I got like 2 more stacks here. So yeah, that's very nice. Let's actually go ahead and right now encode all the relevant recipes. You know, plates, rods, screws, gears, all that stuff. And while we're at it, let's also encode the recipe for the IV machine hulls. We're gonna need tungsten cable for this, which is our first use of silicon rubber, actually. Well, other than the death cables, I mean. Oh, but wait, to actually coat the cable, we are still missing this polyphenylene sulfide, which might be a problem. This is another chemical reaction setup. Okay, let me see what I can do about this real quick. Alright, if we look at the recipe here, it's going to be a mix of oxygen, dichlorobenzene, and sodium sulfide. And the sodium sulfide is, well, just 2 sodium and 1 sulfur here, so it's easy enough. For the dichlorobenzene, that's just going to be chlorine and benzene, which is also easy enough. And also, I believe that in this process here, we do get all of the chlorine back and all of the sodium back as well. Since for the dichlorobenzene, we use 4 buckets of chlorine and 1 bucket of benzene, and that gives you 2 hydrochloric acids back. So that's already half of the chlorine. The other half comes back from these 4 pieces of salt, which actually also give you your sodium back in the sodium sulfide. So actually the only inputs for the polyphenylene sulfide is oxygen, benzene, and sulfur. Yeah, that's not too expensive. So yeah, I've already gone ahead and set up the chemical reactor, and we also have our electrolyzer down there. So we'll filter this output bus for salt. That'll auto output, and then also the hydrochloric acid in this output hatch. And then that chlorine will have to go back into some sort of an input hatch, so we can have it over here. Also, as usual, we're going to want to have some sort of tank for the hydrogen that we get out of electrolyzing hydrochloric acid. And since we're using a single block, we'll have to use some cells here and pass them around using some conduits. It's the same as we've been doing thus far, although make sure to definitely avoid overflow on the hydrogen. For the chlorine, we're just going to extract that via fluid conduit into the input hatch, and we're already extracting the hydrochloric into it. So, oh, and yeah, we'll also want to separate separate input bus for the sodium that we get. Let's quickly filter that back in and give it a higher priority so that the sodium should always make its way into here, and then the hydrogen cells will always make its way into the super tank. Probably. I'm not sure if that's gonna work, but we'll see, I guess. Anyways, let's go ahead and also request our benzene and oxygen into the input hatches. I think we do have benzene somewhere. It's probably not on a storage bus though, but I know that we're getting it from distilling some stuff. Oh yeah, right here, this benzene tank. So yeah, we'll grab this and then set all of these to extract on red. I think we also get benzene from this distillation tower. So let's also extract on red here. Yeah, we do get a little bit of benzene from wood tar, which is what this guy is doing. All right, that should have made its way into the input hatch. Yeah, perfect. All right, now make sure to filter in sulfur into the input bus. And we are reusing the same chemical reactor to make sodium sulfide. So we'll filter this output bus and then also extract on brown. That should make its way back into here. And we'll also need circuit 2 in the input bus. Now for the dichlorobenzene, that's going to go into this output hatch, which will point into another input. Actually, that should be it. If we just finish the multi-block here, once we supply an initial input of chlorine here, this should just work. No, it doesn't. What? That's sulfur dichloride. That is not even close to what I wanted. Also, that does mean that we have some sort of an unfiltered output hatch. Oh, this right here. Okay, yeah. This is supposed to be for polyphenylene sulfide. And unfortunately, this dichloride here is absolutely useless. Okay, here's one more serving of chlorine. Now will you work? Ah, there we go. Dichlorobenzene. That's exactly what we want to see. Hydrochloric acid should go here. Yep, gets electrolyzed. That'll hopefully do its thing. So we have dichlorobenzene in the input hatch. I think we just don't have any sodium sulfide because I forgot to supply the sodium. Yeah, of course, we're going to want our initial batch here to get things started. Yep, now it's going. Should have made its way into the input bus if I actually made sure to filter it. Oh, and now it's saying it needs more power to start. I think that's because the polyphenylene sulfide recipe, yeah, it's actually at HV tier. Okay, thankfully this is easy enough. I just have to do a little bit of rewiring. Definitely make sure not to connect this HV cable to the MV machine. Yeah, let's see here. This is going to be a little bit weird, but I think it's actually going to be easier if I move the electrolyzer to the other side. All right, there we go. Everything is back to normal now. And now we should be able to turn this guy on. Ah, there we go. There's my polyphenylene sulfide. We'll just have to extract this on red back into the system. And as usual, give it some sort of a tank. There should also actually be, yeah, another quest down here, so we can go ahead and finish that out, which is nice. Yeah, I'll do that once we have enough. For right now though, we're gonna add a recipe for the bars and also for the foils because this is the version that we need. Alright, now we should be able to get our IV hull. Yeah, perfect. We'll just need to cook up a little bit of tungsten. I did request that a while ago just to have that going, but it's still not gone through, I think. Oh yeah, I guess these are still working on tungsten steel. Okay, that's fine. Once we have a couple ingots here, I'll request the IV hull. For now though, I actually want to focus on one particular thing here for the rest of the episode, which is going to be power generation. As you guys already know, we are pretty much almost there with the IV chapter. And the power consumption on these guys is no joke. It's 8,000 EU per machine. And currently we're only generating 12,000, which, well, that's like, what, 1.5 amps of IV? That's nothing. In fact, right now, it looks like our battery is draining. Probably because of all the blast furnaces. So yeah, you can see that we're not doing so great on power. And also, once we unlock IV, we'll actually have access to a bunch of new multi-blocks. You know, we get access to things like the multi-block bending machine, macerator, centrifuge, the lathe, the extruder. Although it does come at a cost of huge power demand. Pretty much all of these are going to need their own, like, 1 or 2 amps of EV power to run as good as we want them to. Now, thankfully for us though, in the quest book, we do have a page called How to Generate Power. And for us, there's 2 very specific recommendations that the quest makes. The first one being the large combustion engine and the large gas turbines, which are the multi-block versions of both of these generators that we have. Now, with them being multi-blocks, of course, they are a little bit pricey, requiring IV circuits, EV components, and a whole bunch of titanium for the multi-block itself. Same thing with the gas turbine, although this is only EVs and stainless steel. So it's not as bad, but it's still going to be a little bit of a pain. So now I've just gone ahead and encoded the recipes for these guys. And I think I want to go for 4 of each multi-block, so I've already pinned a couple of the materials that we're going to need for each. Let's start with the gas turbines. They seem to be a little bit cheaper. Oh, and actually we can already get those. Alright, then let's request it. Now for the combustion engines, can we get 4 of these? We actually totally can. We're just missing tungsten steel cable, which thankfully we can also do that. We do have the polyphenylene sulfide now. And yeah, that's all that we were missing for the combustion engines. At least for the controllers. We still have to get the rest of the stuff. And also with the gas turbines, there is one very important consideration that we have, and that's going to be choosing the turbine material that we're going to use. Depending on what we go for, well, that changes how much durability it has, or basically how long it's going to last, and also how much power we actually generate. Which reminds me, actually, for the material that we're going to go for, it's going to need us to actually get into a little bit of the IV chapter. We'll need the assembler and also the mixer, and maybe the energy hatch as well, although I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, either way, we'll have to delve into IV a little more, and I think I want to save that for a little later. I don't know if we're ready for that just yet. So I think for now, we'll just craft the gas turbines, and then we'll set them up next episode. I mean, even for now, just using the combustion engines is going to be plenty. And so actually, yeah, let's see here. So So if we want 4 of these guys to be set up, we're gonna need about 1 stack of stable titanium machine casing. Oh, and nice, we can actually afford this. I wasn't sure if we'd have enough titanium, but anyways, the next component is gonna be 8 titanium gearbox casings, which I can already do. I just need to wait for some CPUs. Okay, now the last component we need is about 24 of these engine intake casings. All right, now all we're missing is the controller blocks getting ready. Looks like we're just stuck on circuits. Oh, but also my large gas turbine's finished. And like 2 minutes later, there's my combustion engines as well. Alongside a couple pieces of tungsten that finally got ready. So now we can also unlock the IV chapter. Anyways, yeah, coming back to the combustion engine, so if you read the tooltip right there, to get this running, all we have to do is supply some diesel fuels and 1,000 liters of lubricant every hour to run. And we can also supply an optional 40 liters of second of oxygen to boost the output, which we were definitely going to be doing because by default, it only generates an amp of EV. But if you boost it, it actually triples the amount of power generated, and it also gives you a 50% boost on the fuel efficiency. So supplying this thing with oxygen is pretty much a must if you want to make them worthwhile. There's also the consideration of how are we going to extract power because, well, it's a multi-block, we can't hook up a cable directly to it. So that's exactly why these things exist, the dynamo hatches. It looks like it's actually the exact same recipe as the energy hatches, just take an aluminum spring instead of aluminum cable. That's the only difference. So let's go ahead and encode this and see what we're missing. Yeah, we're actually not missing anything, just the springs themselves, which I'm going to go ahead and batchcraft here because we still don't have an on-demand forge hammer. Oh, but actually, this does remind me, these dynamo hatches can only output 1 amp. And well, we're going to be generating 3 with our combustion engine. So we're going to have to upgrade these to the 4 amp dynamo hatches, which doesn't actually seem like a bad upgrade. Yeah, it's just a bunch of random garbage here. Oh wait, no, maybe I'm supposed to be making the buffer dynamo hatches, which are just more cable and EV circuits. I actually can't remember. Okay, I just went to the Discord to double check. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to get the buffer dynamo hatch, which is absolutely fine. They're not particularly expensive. Alright, so there we go. Now we have a way to generate the power and we also have a way to extract it. All that's left to do now is to actually place them down. And actually, when I was building these platforms, I made sure to leave enough space for 12 combustion engines that we can potentially have and like 12 gas turbines that we can have over here. Since the way that we're going to be building them, it's going to look something like this. We're going to be wall sharing like 4 of these at once. And yeah, we have enough space here for 3 of these sort of modules, which is 12 engines in total. That's going to be, well, plenty of power generation for quite some time. Now, as for the multi-block structures themselves, it's going to look something like this. We're going to want 2 gearbox casings behind the controller. And then our EV dynamo hatches are going to have to go on them as well. As for the input and output hatches, well, for that, I've gone ahead and crafted myself 4 quadruple input hatches. Since remember, we're trying to supply oxygen, lubricant, and the diesel. And I'm pretty sure these input hatches have to be touching the gearbox casings as well, so we'll configure them like that. Same thing with the muffler and maintenance hatches, they all have to be touching the gearbox casing. And now for the rest of the multi-block, it's just going to be some of these engine intake casings on the front, and the rest will just be regular titanium casing. Hopefully I have enough of this. I was just kind of eyeballing the amount that I crafted. Oh, but it looks like we're good. I have enough. Alright, nice. Now we just have to do the maintenance. These are multi-blocks after all, and now we have to think about supplying the fuels. The easiest way to do this is probably to just have a fluid export bus with a capacity card and also a couple acceleration, and then we can connect everything up with a couple conduits. So we supply the lubricant, the oxygen, and this actually brings us over to the next part of this episode, because I gave it a little bit of thought and I think we are not going to be supplying these with diesel. Instead, I'm actually going to go ahead and craft a couple of machines here we're going to need for a different type of fuel, starting with another distillation tower. Oh, and I'm missing steel rotors. Alright, let's try that again. Next is going to be 4 whole LCRs. And the last machine we're going to need for now is another oil cracking unit, which we're going to be wall sharing with the first one, so we'll have to get a couple nichrome coils for him. And now with all these machines crafted, give me a moment here so that I can plan out where they're going to go, do a little bit of reshuffling around here with the machines. I have to switch some things around, configure the power, the channels, you know, all that extra stuff. And then yeah, once I'm done, I'll bring you right back. Alright, so welcome back. As you just saw, I went ahead and placed down all the machines, and also took the time to rewire a couple of the AE2 components, as well as the power connections. So now all that's left to do for us is, hook up all the inputs and outputs, yeah. First of all, let me reconfigure this first oil cracking unit to what we had it doing before, which was severely steam cracked naphtha. Okay, I just got done with reconfiguring the inputs. We have the steam and the naphtha here, but for whatever reason, the oil cracking unit is just not actually working. We have the circuit number in there, so I don't know what's happening. My only guess right now is that maybe we're supposed to have the steam in the middle input hatch. That's the only thing that I can see going wrong with this. Oh, okay. Wait, that was actually the issue. Okay. I guess that makes sense. Anyway, so yeah, why the hell did we set up all these extra machines? You know, we have 4 LCRs, a distillation tower, and another oil cracking unit. Well, all these machines are going to work together to hopefully produce us our new fuel, which is going to be high octane gasoline. Yep, it's about time that we invest in this, and it does look quite involved. It has 5 separate inputs, but I'm pretty sure we have most of the infrastructure already. There's only a couple of fluids we're missing here. Let's start with gasoline, which that's just toluene plus raw gasoline. And toluene we do get out of distilling the naphtha and also with tar, so I believe we already have a tank for this. Yeah, we're up to 1,000 buckets, that's good. For the raw gasoline, that's just a mixture of naphtha, refinery gas, methanol, and acetone. And now that I think about it, wait, I'm pretty sure we have all of those fluids already. Yeah, here's the acetone, here's the methanol, and here's my naphtha and refinery gas. Okay, that's quite easy. Let's go ahead and set them up. And we should be able to share the same LCR for this, so let's see. We will definitely have to add another dual interface here. And yeah, now we request all the fluids. That'll go into a quadruple input hatch just because it's easier. Now, of course, this will only output the raw gasoline, so we're going to have to send that through an output hatch and then back into the input, which we'll then need to mix with our toluene if we just quickly filter that in. And then here's the output hatch for the gasoline. We shouldn't have to send this back to the system. I'll just extract it on blue, which means we can extract this back into the input hatch of whatever other machine needs it. All right, now we finish up the multi-block and also connect up the power, of course. One of these LCRs is even going to be running at EV, so we're going to have a transformer here. That way we can connect this to our 16 amp EV input, which is, yeah, of course, going to power him, and then the transformer will power the other guys. All right, now we should be able to turn him on. Oh, except there's not enough fluid output space. Yeah, the raw gasoline here crafts 20 buckets at a time, but the LVs can only handle 16. Okay, here's one MV output hatch, and I also crafted an HV one for the high octane gasoline itself. Yeah, this thing crafts 32 buckets at a time, so definitely need the extra capacity. Anyways, I was kind of expecting that to not go so horribly, but of course I forgot to plug this in. It happens way too often, but yeah, there we go. Alright, cool, that's the first part done. The next fluid for us is going to be octane, which is exactly why we built the distillation tower. We're going to be distilling lightly hydrocracked light fuel, and that's of course going to come from the oil cracking unit. Just a mix of hydrogen and light fuel. Now, of course, that does mean that we're pretty much going to have to stop producing diesel for this to work. Yeah, instead of sending the light fuel to the mixer, we'll extract it on red, and then get rid of this guy entirely. And before I forget, I'm going to place down a bunch of casing here just to remind me that I'll have to swap up the diesel that we used to fuel the oil rig for the high octane gasoline once we have that. But yeah, so of course now we'll have to have a super tank for the light fuel. And as for the heavy fuel, well, we'll actually still be able to make use of this if we ever run low on toluene, because we can just distill it directly for a very nice 400 every 6 seconds. If we're lacking on toluene for the high octane gasoline, then I'll definitely set up another distillation tower for this, or probably just even a single block, because I don't care about the other outputs. It's just more phenol and benzene, and we have plenty of these. But yeah, that's definitely something to consider. For now, I'm just going to send the heavy fuel into a super tank on site, and then we'll avoid overflow. We'll also have to switch out the level emitter that we have for diesel, and we'll make it so that it checks if we have enough light fuel instead. That should be good, although it looks like we do have a bottleneck of oil. I know that it's being pumped out fast enough. It's just that these magic mirrors are kind of slow at transferring the cells back and forth, which kind of sucks. I don't think there's a way to fix that, so we'll have to deal with it. Oh, and I just remembered, we do get extra light fuel from distilling the naphtha, so we'll go ahead and actually extract this back into the tank as well. Yeah, it's just a little extra that we can have. Anyways, let's filter in the light fuel and also the hydrogen into the input hatches. And I already brought over a capacity card for the export buses, and the recipe calls for circuit 1. There we go, nice. Let's not forget to rename the P2P for this, and we can send that to the distillation tower. All right, now we can turn this on maybe. Aha, nice. We're getting all the garbage. I'll have to also set up some level emitter logic for that guy as well. And you know what, honestly, all we want from this is the octane. Yeah, all these other fluids we can get elsewhere at a much better rate, so we'll say go ahead and keep in stock 2,000 buckets for that, and make sure to add a super tank. All right, now the next fluid is going to be nitrous oxide, which is just oxygen nitrogen. That's actually fairly simple, although they are used in quite a large quantity, so I'll have to make sure we don't use too much of them. But yeah, circuit 24 and turn this guy on. And of course, it never usually works on the first try. That is because we need an input hatch that can hold 20 buckets for the nitrogen. So again, here's an MV1. That should be big enough for you. Yeah, there we go. And again, there's no need for us to send this back to the system, so we're just extracting this on blue. All right, next fluid is toluene. We already have that. And now the last fluid that we need is anti-knock agent, which actually has two ways to get it. We can either just chemical react ethanol and butene together. Both of these fluids we already have, although not in great quantities. We have like less than 100 buckets of each. Or we can go with the other option of combining methanol and butene for this reaction mixture, and then sending that through a distillation tower for the anti-knock agent, plus some of the butene and methanol back. I'm not sure which method is better here, so if you guys know, maybe you can tell me in the comments, but just for now, for simplicity's sake, we'll go with the chemical reactor recipe, and I'll have to have a super tank for both of those fluids. The ethanol here we're getting from distilling wood vinegar, I think, although as you can see, it is a horrific ratio. It's 1 bucket for 10 millibuckets, although there is this recipe here of combining ethylene and steam together for ethanol, so we might go for this. It's honestly not too bad, but for now, we'll use what we have and just make sure to add another level emitter here. We'll set this to 250 buckets. Now for the butene, I think we just get this, from distilling naphtha. So we just have to send this back to the system. And again, we set up another fluid level emitter. This will also just be 250 buckets. All right, let's go ahead and filter in all the inputs and place down yet another ME interface because we're out of slots again. All right, now we finished the multi-block and this should be good. Yep, there's the anti-knock agent. We might also have to overclock this because it's 20 seconds for each bucket. And for the high octane gasoline recipe, you need 3. So that's over a minute just to run the recipe once. If this becomes a bottleneck, we will definitely overclock it, but I'm pretty sure the most likely thing to actually be a bottleneck is going to be octane. That's pretty much the main bottleneck for high octane gasoline. But yeah, we'll see. Anyways, now that we have the anti-knock agent, we should actually have all the inputs necessary. So all we have to do is filter them in. It's 5 separate inputs, so we have 1 regular and then 1 quadruple input hatch. And now we just filter the high octane gasoline to the output. We'll definitely want to extract this back to the system and of course give it its own super tank. And now that it has the circuit 24, we should be able to turn this guy on. Aha, nice! 32 buckets every 2.5 seconds. Well, of course, as long as we can get all the other inputs fast enough, but it should already be making its way into the tank. Yup. And yeah, all of the other machines are running as well. Although mainly the anti-knock agent, of course. Alright, finally, now that we have this, we can actually finish setting up our LCEs here. We'll just request the hog and the export bus, and we also have to actually connect it up. Let's also make sure that we're extracting all that power we'll be generating. In total, we should be getting about 12 amps of EV power. And so for that, this 4X black steel cable, which can handle 16 amps, will be more than enough. And I kind of like extruded the building a little bit here so that we can hide the cables. You know, something like this. We'll cover it all with bricks. Wow, everything turned off. I'm stupid, I forgot. Oh yeah, and now we can also get rid of the single block generators. They've served us well thus far, but they're not really going to be enough anymore. Oh yeah, and don't worry, I did make sure to save all the diesel and refinery gas that was in there. All right, so there we go. That's that connected up. And now there's actually still one very last thing that we have to do before we can turn these guys on. Since unlike the single block generators, which stop generating power once the battery is full, these guys will keep running forever basically and, well, voiding all of these inputs even if the battery doesn't need power. So to help with that, we're going to need a couple of parts here. Like first things first, the energy detector cover. We'll actually need 2 of these. And then we'll also need an RS latch here. I also want to see if I can get access to wireless redstone here. It's not really required, but it will definitely help. And I think, yeah, this is totally doable. The recipes don't look too bad. Yeah, it looks like this is only gated by tungsten steel in the wireless transceiver. But of course, we already have that. Now, the main component of this little circuit we're going to build is going to be the RS latch. This is what actually decides if the combustion engine should run or not. And it looks like we ran out of power for everything. That's fun. Yeah, our Lapitrons are completely dead. Anyways, yeah, the way that these RS latches work is that if you give it a signal on one side, it switches where the output is. So by default, the signal was getting output here, but once we enabled the signal that was on the left, it switched the output side. And now even if we try to toggle the lever on and off, nothing will change. This will only go back to its original state once we toggle the other input. And so in combination with our energy detector covers, we can very easily decide if we actually want to turn on the LECs and make power. So let's go ahead and like set frequency 10 to be power. And now we need to configure the covers. So for the first one, this is going to be set to electricity storage, including batteries. And we'll tell it to check if the energy is over 80%. So if the batteries are over 80% full, then we want to disable the RS latch, which will of course disable the combustion engines. Now for the other one, we'll say that it should check if the batteries are 25% full. And if they are, then output a signal which will turn on the LECs. So now what this circuit is basically going to do is if we're below 25% on the batteries, all of our power generation is going to turn on and start filling up the battery until we're at at 80%. And then once the batteries are full and the LECs turn off, we're going to keep using up energy until we're below that 25% threshold again. And then of course after that it will turn on the combustion engines to refill our battery again. This sort of setup basically lets us have maximum efficiency of our fuel because the generators have a little bit of a upstart cost. And so this way we don't actually waste that much diesel. Anyways, yeah, so the machine controller covers are already set to enable with redstone. All we have to do is hook up the frequency now. And there we go, nice. If you look at the tooltip right now, you can see the efficiency is still going up slowly. And as it goes up, you generate more and more power. Are the batteries charging up? By the way, it looks like to me that the export bus is not fast enough to supply the oxygen at least. Yeah, the input hatches are slowly losing that, so I think I'm going to replace him with a dual interface instead. That way I can extract from multiple sides. And yeah, that definitely helped. We are staying full on the oxygen. Anyways, let me go ahead and, well, turn all of the machines back on. Okay, that should have been everything. And yeah, look at that. We are now generating 24,000 EU per tick. That's a very nice amount of power. And I think now with that, we're going to wrap up the episode here. For next time, I think we might want to look into a better way of storing this power. Now that we're generating so much, it's probably a good idea to also have a really good battery to go along with it. And there's actually a couple of options here that we can go for. So yeah, I'll have to look through these in between the episodes and pick one of them. But yeah, I think also next time I want to look into some ore processing as well. It's definitely about time that we move that from the overworld. And then yeah, after we have the battery and ore processing set up, I'll probably want to look into actually crafting the tier 2 rocket here. If we do get to crafting this before we make the IV mixer and assembler that I said we're going to need to get the large gas turbines operational, then we'll actually probably not even need these two anymore. At least not for the turbines. Because there's an ore that spawns in the tier 2 planets, which is going to be sort of like a replacement to the material that I want out of the IV mixer. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Although I think just before ending off the episode, we should probably look into opening all the loot bags. Although I'll only open like 9 of these, and also this Fortune 3 bag that I got from some other quest quite a while ago. So let's see what we get here. Ooh, some large titanium fluid cells. There's also transfer nodes, that's garbage, copper, energium dust, reinforced plates, some conduit stuff, nichrome cables, a bunch of IC2 fuel rods. Oh, and half a stack of MV circuits, that's nice. Fluid detector covers, wafers, lapitron crystal, and these other two aren't worth mentioning. Well, as usual, the rewards aren't that great, but it's to be expected at this point. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll come back next time to do the things that I just said we were gonna do. But for now, though, have a great rest of your day.